Hey everyone, and it's time for real life conversations with me. Nighttime is practically always the best time to talk about deep stuff with me. When I was younger and my mom was not working, her and I would be in this very living room right here, and her and I would just talk about stuff that upset us, and we would laugh. It's just how we were. It was a wonderful time. Um, Also, the time is 11:20. In about 40 minutes, it's going to be Thanksgiving Day. So, I think now would be a good time to say that I am definitely thankful for people for reasons such as what I'm going to be reading about in my essay, which has to do with anxiety disorder. And I've known a lot of people that have helped me. I'm also thankful for my hair. I love hair. So here's my essay that I wrote for college just recently. Actually, just today, I finished it. 4 pages long. And it's about how to find help with your anxiety disorder. So, imagine you are walking down an unfamiliar street at night. It's foggy, and every time you look over your shoulder, you notice a silhouette of a man walking at a 15-yard distance from you. At the corner of your eye, you can make out his 5'7" height and his slender build. Every street you turn onto, he turns on as well. You try and reason with yourself. It's just a coincidence. Maybe he needed to go this way anyway. No matter how much you tell yourself that, you're thinking in the back of your mind, if he attacks me, would I have a chance? Is he a new Jack the Ripper? Is he carrying knives or chloroform? You do your best to accept all these thoughts collectively, but your fear instincts start kicking in. You feel alert, but at the same time you want to fall to your knees in desperation. Your body wants to shake in fear, but you don't want to let it show. Alright, so keep that illustration in your mind as we shift to a completely opposite scenario. I want you to pretend you are at a place that you like going to, a place you know will keep you safe. Whenever you go there, it's always difficult for you not to laugh with someone. Perhaps your idea of enjoyment might include being on a beach, hanging out at your best friend's house, or visiting a petting zoo. Once you think of that place, go back to the first place and pick out some of those fear emotions that you would feel if you were from that dark street situation. And then add those emotions, those fear emotions, to your favorite location on earth. So, as of now, that's the best description of anxiety disorder that I can give to you. Anxiety is complicated and a lot of times misunderstood by people who haven't gone through it as badly. Anxiety can really be a frustrating disorder that affects many Americans, and unfortunately, it persuades some to give into it. However, there are tips that I've learned that might be of help. I assume that people who battle with anxiety, even at the same level of intensity, might have to go about different ways of treating it, and I'm not just talking about medicine. Things that help me may or may not help you, but I believe that you can find a way to either cope with it or be cured from it by perseverance. Before I start listing some of my ideas, I want you to know what I've gone through so that you can see if you relate to any of my struggles in order to figure out if my tips may work for you. My anxiety issues began when I was in 3rd grade. I can recall it starting near a holiday, possibly Halloween. After school ended for the weekend, I got sick the next morning. I was lying on the top of my bunk bed with a slight pain in my stomach. I called my dad to my bedroom to help me into the living room, and he did so. It was like 6 a.m. My dad was already up. Later on that morning, I threw up. Now, the funny part is that when my older sister was up eating breakfast, I was throwing up and I was laughing because she was getting grossed out by it. Moving on. Eventually, by the end of the weekend, I got better, but on the day back to school, my anxiety problems began. I didn't know it was fear at the time, but the only symptom I can remember having was an upset stomach. The next 2 months were hard for me, especially Mondays to Wednesdays. Thursdays and Fridays I generally did pretty well. The teachers let me go home early once in a while because of my nausea. Weeks later, as this continued, my mum took me to a doctor, but the results came back normal. For those who have anxiety, don't you hate it when you go to the doctor, you feel miserable, and the doctor always says, "You are the healthiest person I've seen all day." I hate it when a doctor says that because I just wish there was something actually wrong with me. Sounds weird, but that's mental disorders for you. Almost every time my mom drove me to school, I'd cry in the car. Sometimes my mom would have to walk me inside of the school building, and comfort me outside of class. So I was tardy a lot. Approximately during the spring, I started doing better because someone told me that a girl in my class liked me. Even though that helped calm my fear emotions, I would unfortunately have more anxiety issues later on in life. I don't exactly know what triggered my disorder. All I can really do is put theories to occurrences that happened to me. Moving on to age 16, my anxiety began getting worse. I struggled leaving home because I always felt like something bad was going to happen. Feeling nauseous constantly did not help me think positively. I was also 16 when I started my first job, but getting through the door was tough for me. Thankfully, my supervisor was nice enough to be of comfort. I really had no clue what was in store for my life at that time. I was like, what am I going to do when, like, 10 years from now? I really had no idea. I was thinking to myself, would I, like, 10, 20 years from then, would I be still living with my parents? Or what would happen? I really wished that I had the nerve, like other people my age, to get out and do fun things. My friends were going to make a movie one day, but I had to cancel on them because of how poorly I felt. If someone prophesied that I was going to go to college in 9 years, I would have panicked. My anxiety symptoms consisted of feeling like something bad was going to happen to me. I also had nausea, of course, and headaches, and some kind of pain in my throat. To top it off, I had depression to accompany my disorder. Anxiety and depression commonly work together when bullying men and women. People would often ask me, "Why are you feeling anxious?" My answer was always, "I don't know." I never felt abused by my parents. I was never picked on when I was in a public school. I just feel anxious. Ugh. So that's a small portion of my anxious life. And I've got lots more stories, but I'm going to skip that and get ready to go to the advice that helped and helps me. So, how did I get from there to here? And here being that I have driven to Pennsylvania all on my own. I went to South Dakota with 99% of strangers to accompany me. And I'm also currently in college. So my first advice would be to talk to people, old and young, about what you're going through. I never opened up about my anxiety to many people while I was growing up, nor did I want to. I mean, I shared some of my stories with some people, but I wasn't as open about it as I am now. If it was not for my social engagement about anxiety, I don't know where I'd be right now. With people I communicated with, I began finding hope. It felt like the warm sun was coming out from behind the dreary clouds. They introduced me to people who dealt with similar things. They gave me advice and they listened well. Try and find people who listen well. They might not have gone through the very same symptoms, but I sensed confusion that the victims of anxiety were feeling. And that confusion they were feeling was like, I sensed it was the same confusion that I was feeling. Even old friends of my family have battled with anxiety, and I would never have known if I did not communicate with people. Counseling was the next step I did to improve my life. It cracked the shell of fear that formed around me. The counselor told me about his experiences with anxiety and how the emotions work. Talking to him helped me take small steps to becoming independent. I mentioned earlier that headaches were one of my symptoms, but recently I began noticing that some foods that I eat can cause my headaches. So my third advice would be to eat healthy and find out what healthy foods benefit your body. Doing missions work has given me a joy that makes me want to get out and do productive things. It has helped me feel that everybody has pains and that I'm not the only one walking around feeling weak. Missions work can be done close to where you live, perhaps even on your own street. It doesn't have to be far, far away. Missions work can include talking to someone next to you about their struggles. I find peace when I do that. Anxiety medications seem to help me as well. But if it weren't for the other tips, I would not be as independent while on the medications. those are all the ideas that I have done during my walk through anxiety. I still feel poorly sometimes, and most of the time it feels like there's still a dark cloud above me. But that dark cloud is not as big as it used to be. So when I feel anxious, I do my best to remember the people who I've been able to help, and that inspires me to get out and interact with the world. So those are my experiences, true stories, and I hope that it has provided you with some hope. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Hey everyone, it's time for real life conversations with me. Nighttime is practically always the best time to get me to speak honestly. Well, I mean, or not honestly, well, yeah. Or I always do speak